All right, so continuing to where we once had left off. I'm just going to go ahead and not do that. I'm going to go after this. Come on. Can I click after or no? You can do it. There it goes. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to use our insert section over here, our little tab here. And if it's not over there, just you can turn it on here. Okay. It's the same thing as the stuff that's also inside of here. Okay. Now, the options on the insert are, yours is probably on currently HTML, which is cool and that's good, but we're not using that right now. We're going to be doing Le Bootstrap. Okay, so you can see right in the beginning they're kind of broken up into sections here, and the top section is more or less how you lay out. So you remember I said container and then the container fluid. So we're going to go ahead and do fluid for the top because I want it to go all the way across. So I'm going to do container fluid, and there it goes. And it will make div class container fluid. Basically, it's just these are just going to be divs, like that. Okay, so you can see I'm just going to, after I hit enter, this is going to keep popping up because I hate it. It like collapses it every time. So I'm going to click in between, and then I'm just going to back this up so it matches up here. Okay, good. So now what we do is all of our columns and rows are going to be in this section. So the way that you lay it out is that you make a row, and then you say how many columns you want, or how many sections you want, and how many columns each one of those should be. Okay, so it'll make sense as we do this. So I have my container now, and so if we look at what we currently have, I want to just span the whole thing. Okay, so I'm just going to have it span the whole thing. So to make the grid row with column, you click on this, and then it's going to pop up. And then you say the number of columns you want. But see, I feel like that's a misnomer because it's still 12 columns wide. What you're telling it is how many sections do you want this broke up into. So don't do this. I'm just showing you right now. Okay. If I do 3, it's going to make 3 sections. So see how I did 1, 2, 3. But then after that, I could do another one. Again, still don't do this. Grid row with column. And let's say I'm going to do, 2. And then I'll hit OK. And then it'll make another. What's going to do, it makes a row. Div, and then it makes these divs of columns on the inside. And then after this row, so you see I did 1 row with 3, then 1 row with 2, then I'm starting to sound like Scooby here. Then I could do another one and be like, I want to do, 4. Okay, and then I'll do 4. But what it's doing is this. This is what's actually happening. So now you can see there's 4 sections. Okay, this is what it's doing. It makes a row, so it says there's 1 row. That means it's going to go all the way across, and then how many sections it's broken up into. Okay. Now, if you remember, we did 12. We did 12 columns. Okay. So what that means is that the number of columns for each section needs to equal that. So if we want to do 3, it means each one has to be 4, so that the total here ends up being 12. And then if we want to do 2, they end up being 6 because 6 plus 6 equals 12. And then if we wanted to do 4 sections here, we have to make them 3, okay? And this is one of the reasons why you do 12, because 12 kind of gives you lots of options where you can easily cut it in half. You can cut it into thirds. You can cut it into fourths. So that's why 12 columns, I think, is like the most common. Anyway, you shouldn't have done any of that anyhow. We're just going to go ahead and do our thing here. So you can see we're not really doing anything exciting because I'm just going to do 12 all the way across. So I'm going to click on the grid row with column. It's going to pop up, and I'm just going to say Le 1 and hit OK. Make sure you're inside of that container, okay? So now you can see it spans all the way across, okay? Let me just show you this too as well. So you can see it going across, right? Watch what happens if I'm going to make the container. I'm just going to manually write it instead of clicking on the thing. So if it's just container, this is what it looks like if we didn't do the fluid version. So that's the difference. One will have like the empty areas on the side, and one doesn't. But we're going to go ahead and keep the fluid version. Okay, I'm just doing fluid for the top here. Okay, so that's 1. And then the next set, that's 1 row, and it just has 12 for its columns. And then we're just going to do another one. So I'm going to click on, or we can kick it, whatever. Grid row with column. And again, it's just going to be 1. There's only 1 thing in there. Okay. Okay. Now, the way I did my illustration here is I actually kind of set this up to not be that way, but I'm just going to go ahead and say it goes all the way across. Just whatever. Okay. So, good. So now we have 2 sections, and they just say content goes here, content goes here. We're going to come back to these. I'm just going to try and lay the rows and columns first, and then we'll go back and we'll put in our placeholder content. Okay, we're not going to do final stuff, like we're not going to put pictures in there. We're just going to put placeholder stuff. All right, so that is all part of this container fluid. So now what I'm going to do is, after that, I'm going to do a regular flavor. So just the regular container. And you're going to see it's going to do this, and then, again, it collapses the thing. And I'm just going to hit, come on. Okay, it did work. Boop, boop. Stupid thing. Tab. I hate how it, I don't know, it doesn't line up right. Anyway, so now I got this container. And then if you look, I have it doing, I know it's funny, actually, because I kind of did the opposite. This was actually fluid, or, regular, and then fluid. But we're just going to do whatever. Okay. So in here, what I'm going to do is the regular. So I got to do 4. So I'm just going to go ahead and inside of it, I'm inside of the container here. I'm going to click on grid row with column, and we wanted to do 4. I was going to have 4 sections. Boom. So it's going to do a row, and then 4 columns, and then what was after that? I think I had 2 sections. Okay, so now again, I'm just going to go ahead and we'll just do like that. We'll do another grid row with column, and this time it's just 2. We'll hit OK, and then I'm just going to do another row, grid row column, and oops, come on, grid row column. And we're just going to make this 1, because I'll say this is my legal. Okay. All right. So that's what it looks like. You can see basically the layout there. Now, what it does, it's all collapsed to fit whatever the content is. So, like the height of it is being determined by that. Now, we can force it to be what height we want in a little bit here. But let's go ahead and put the content in and just kind of base it off of that. Okay. So, the other thing besides doing this column layout here, and let me just show you something real quick. When I collapse this, you'll see that at a certain point, they'll stack, okay? But it's fluid. See how, like, even, like, the spans here, see how it's nice and, like, it just squeezes in? It's responsive, okay? So I'm sure you've noticed when you're on a phone, right, and when you turn it, like, you'll start to see elements stack. That's what this is going to do. All right. So that's great. But the other thing besides that system that has built that, it just kind of helps lay us out so we can put all of our stuff in there. The other thing that it can do is it will allow us to, it also has built-in like components here, which basically they're classes that they have made and that you can put your own stuff in that just pre-make stuff. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to start at the top again. So this is supposed to be my nav bar, right? This content goes here. So right now, we have this row, and then it's a column 12, and then it says content goes here. One of the things I want to do is I'm going to hit enter on this, and back that up, and I'm going to get rid of the content goes here, okay? And I like to do this as well. I like to put gaps between the rows, so that I know that this is like one row section, this is one row section, and then this closes this container. If that makes sense? Just because that way I can see it visually. To me, it makes it a little bit easier to understand. So I'm going to do the same thing down here. I'm going to space this out between this row, and then this row, and this row. Okay, so I can see clearly, like, this is one row, this is one row. Just to me, it's visually easier to understand. Okay, so I did this, and then I took this div, and I broke it up. So I have the div up here and the div down here, or the closing down there. And now inside of it, I'm going to use what's over here. So if you look, they have a bunch of these things. Oh, it must be on the bottom. They moved it. Okay. So they have Nav Bar and navigation. We want Nav Bar. Okay. So if you click on the little, if I click on it, it's going to just do whatever the default is. But if you click on the little, I think they call it twirly, but this little arrow will give you a drop down. And they have basic Nav Bar, fixed top, fixed bottom, inverted Nav Bar. So fixed top just means that when I scroll, it'll always stay on the top. Okay, so no matter how far down you scroll, the nav bar is always there. And then the basic nav bar is just going to be a normal white one, and then the inverted basically is a dark one. So it's a matter of whether you want to do a light color or a dark color. Usually I go with the dark one. I think it typically looks better, but let's just go with the basic one. And we don't want to do fixed top or bottom. We're not doing that. So we're just going to do basic nav bar. So I'm just going to click on that, and then boom, it's going to put this nav bar in for me. Okay, and you can see it's a whole lot of code. And we'll adjust this in a second, but yeah. So what it's trying to do is by default, I'm going to go ahead and click on live here up on the top, so it just shows me my live view. This little slider will allow me to expand. Like this is basically like changing the browser window size. That's what this is meant for. And you can actually see where small is, where medium is, where large and extra large are. That's what these little sections stand for. Okay, so basically what it does when you make the components, by default, they automatically put some stuff in there, and most of the time what they'll do is they'll try to put all the options in there because it's a lot easier to remove stuff than it is to put them in. So like for instance, we're not going to want this search section. I'm going to get rid of that because it's not going to work anyway because it would require like JavaScript and other languages to try and get it to be able to read the site and look for things. But I want to get rid of it, but it would be harder for me to write the code to make it, so it puts it in there, and then I'll just find it and delete it. So it gives you a bunch of options here. But what I want to show you, the main thing that's important about it is this. When I go to collapse this, you'll see it becomes just Navbar and just this drop down. Come on, work. Why do you not work? I'll just preview. Control Enter. Hopefully. Okay, we'll do it this way then. Firefox. Yeah, go ahead and save. Probably should be saving as we're going along. So I'm just going to preview it, and then you can kind of see what I'm talking about. Yeah. Sweet. Really? That's what you're going to do now? I already did save it. Control S. Your disappointment. Let's try Chrome. When one lets me down, I usually try the other. Come on. There we go. Watch like 12 of them show up because it wasn't working before. Yep. That's pretty stupid. So sometimes this happens. I am not sure why that happens. I don't know. So if that happens, you can still make it work. I'll just click on the actual, we don't need this, on the actual thing. It's going to pop over there. So if it doesn't work, just actually click on it like you normally would for your other stuff. So you can see this is what it looks like. So it has this home button, this link, and then it has this drop down. And then it shows you like if you wanted to have a disabled section, what that would look like. But then you can have this. And again, like I said, it will, when it collapses, it will have this menu, just like you would normally see kind of on a mobile site. So it has all that built into it, and it uses JavaScript, and it uses CSS and things like that. And we actually will make that. If you take Web Design 2, you'll make your own Nav Bar like that. But for right now, we're just going to use this one because it's some automated. Because the code, you have to use JavaScript and other code in order to make it work a little bit better. Okay, so we're going to call that good for the Nav Bar for now. We might come back to it. But again, if you look at this, this is quite a bit of code, right? So I got this row, and then you can see here's the column that it's in, which is a 12 column. And then it's got this nav, right? And that's just a whole lot of nav. So one of the things that kind of helps, and I suggest doing this, it's one of the advantages of this, is see this little twirly here? Click on that, and that will collapse it, right? Out of sight, out of mind. And if you need to see it again, you just click on it, and that will expand it again. So I suggest for some of these, because they're going to be a whole lot of code and it might be harder to navigate, find the section, like the highest section in it. So obviously it's right underneath my column, and this one's nav. Find that, and then just collapse it so the whole thing collapses down, and then you'll then it'll be a little bit easier to work with. Okay. So I'll put live back on, but I meant split. Okay. So I did a nav bar. The next thing I wanted was a call to action, which is just it's a big old picture, and then you have a slide, and then you can click on it. In our case, I don't think they have it. They have a Jumbotron, which is really lame. But we're going to use this the carousel. Carousel is the same thing as a slider or a slideshow, or I'm trying to think of other names for it. But basically, it's where it goes picture by picture. We're going to use their carousel in order to do that. Okay. So I thought it's showing you collapsed. Why are you not? It's weird. Oh, maybe because I haven't clicked inside. Click on here, maybe then. There it goes. I think that I clicked on it, automatically expanded it for me. Okay, so next is this section here. The next row is this guy right here, and this is what I want to be the slideshow. So I'm going to do the same thing I did before, where I'm going to get rid of the content that's in there, because it's just generic. It's just saying content goes here. I'm going to enter, and then enter. And then this is going to go inside of this column, right? So the one thing says it's a row. The next thing says how many columns. Our first two here are just going all the way, so there's nothing too special about it. And we're just going to go ahead and set that up. All right. So with this guy, I'm just going to go ahead and put a carousel. So I'm just going to click on this carousel, and it's going to make a carousel for us. And it's going to set us up with 3. And later on, if you want to add more, you basically have to copy and paste the section on top of another one. But it gives us this nice little slideshow that we can use. And it's all pre-built, which is pretty cool again. So not too bad. And then obviously you'd want to put your own pictures in there. Now, if you look, what it's doing is it's putting this carousel image in there, which is just this placeholder image because it has to have something in there in order for you to replace it. And so you can see that that's what's in there, and you can see it has this absolute URL because that is not next to my it's not next to my my project. That's like in a folder somewhere else. So the only way to get to it is to use an absolute URL. So I'm just going to go ahead and save this. Just do Control S, and then it's like do blah blah blah. What it's going to do is it's going to take that image and actually put it in an images folder on my site because currently, see, it's already doing it. There was no images there for a second, and now when I hit OK, you're going to see now it becomes a relative URL because now on my website it created automatically for us this images folder, and then it has that placeholder picture that you see here, which is really just a picture. I mean, it's not really even much of a picture, but it's just so that you can see that it's working. Okay. And then later on, we'll remove that. We'll put our own in, but it's just putting that in there for us. Okay, so you can see we got a nav bar, we got this carousel, and then I wanted to do basically these sections here, right? So we can look and see what we got down here, see if there's anything, and you can see there's other cool little elements here too that you can play around with that you might want to try out. I'm not really going to use any of these, but if you want to look at them later on, you know what I mean, go for it. Nothing saying that you can't. We're going to go ahead. I'm just going to use cards, I think, for this next. Okay, so this carousel, again, is really big. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit. So you can see here's the row, here's the column, and then it's this div. When I click on this div, you'll notice that I'll highlight the last div. So this is it right here. So I'm just going to go ahead and on 42, in my case, yours might be slightly off because you might have moved. So I'll collapse it. That just makes it easier to work with. So now that is done with our fluid section here. Okay. Now we're on my container section here, which is kind of more the body part, I guess. I mean, this is technically the body too, but okay. So same thing as before. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to get rid of this content. I'll just do it for all of them now. So I'm just going to get rid of content. Goes here. Come on. Good. Good. Okay. And then we're just going to way to highlight stuff I didn't click on. Okay. Enter. Enter. Click here. Enter. 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 Okay. Because the idea is that this is a row, and then each one of these, whatever goes inside of this column, is going to fit in this square here. Or, well, it's not square now, but in this section here. Okay. That's how it's going to work. All right, so in here, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm just going to try a card. So let's try a card. Oops, card with list, card with links, card with header and footer. Let's try a generic card. And so it'll be a picture and then like a title and then some text. So you can see that's the thing. And once again, what you're going to see is that it's going to go ahead and it's going to be, they must have a separate image for it. So so I'm just going to go ahead and hit Control S again, and it's going to be like, we're going to save this. And I'm like, okay, just because it will basically make a duplicate of that picture for me that it's using as the placeholder in that images folder. So you can see it already put it in there for us. Okay. And some quick examples of text to build up on the card, blah, blah, blah. It's looking very squeezed. If I hit live, though, you'll see it better. Okay, it looks a little bit weird, so I might have messed something up. Let's double check here. Let's see, so we got column 3. Okay. So I'm not sure why it did that, but what you'll notice is, see how it says class card, and then it has its own column 4. So literally what it's doing is it's making it take, if it's 4, it's making it take up 1/3 of the space. So if you look, see how, because if this inside, you can actually nest columns inside of columns, which I know is weird. So what's happening is it's actually saying take up 1/4 of this spot. So, or 1/3, because it's 4 columns. And if this is 12, that's 1/3. So I don't want it to do that. So I'm just going to go back to split here so you can see it. And all I'm going to do is remove this part here. And now it'll take the full bit of it. Okay. It's kind of weird that that's on there by default. I don't know why that would be. That seems like a weird thing for it to do. I'm going to go ahead and collapse that for now. And then we'll do another one right here. And again, we'll hit card. And it did the same thing again. I'm just going to, I don't know why. It doesn't look like it's messing it up this time, though. Maybe a little bit it is. But I'm just going to go ahead and I'm just going to get rid of, again, that column 4 part of the first class. And instead of like making it, really, it's going to do this every time. Let's Control S again. Okay, so just hit Control S just to save real quick, and then it will automatically know to connect to that one. Instead of hitting the button and removing that every time, I'm just going to take this section, because again, see, it's inside of this column. I'm just going to click and drag across to get this card in here. And I'm just going to Control C, and I'm just going to paste it in here. Control V. And I'm just going to make sure I tab this in. Tab, just so that it's, I guess I'll space bar twice because it's dumb. And then same thing in here again. Space, Control V. Good. So basically, and I'm just going to go ahead and collapse each one of these. So this is the card. I'm just going to hit the little collapse button. Come on. And then right here it says div class card. Collapse that. Oh. And then div class card. Like that. Okay. And why is that so far out? Oh, that's weird. I guess because it's highlighted. It's weird that it's very strange. All right, well, whatever. I'm not sure why it's doing that. And now it's normal. Okay, who knows? All right, so again, if I click on live now, you're going to see that basically I have those cards. And I have, my thing here, right? So we're kind of building it out. It doesn't have any of the content, but it has the pieces in there. And now let's go ahead and do the last section here. So we got this row, and I got 2 things here. So I'm just going to remove that content. I'm going to remove that content, and then we'll hit enter, enter. Click on this, enter, enter. And then I'm going to see if there's anything over here that I really want, but I don't think I do. I think what I'm going to do instead is just make my own stuff here. So inside of this first one, I'm just going to go ahead and just do a heading. So that's actually a normal component. I'm going to try and keep using insert just so you guys can see it, but normally I would just write it by hand. So I'm going to switch to HTML, and then I'm just going to go ahead and go to heading. I'm going to hit the little thing though, and I'm going to do an H3. And this will make an H3, so blah, blah, blah. And then after that, make sure I'm going to tab that in too. So you can see that it's inside of this. So now it's got a heading, and then I'm just going to do a P element. So I'm just going to go here and where it says paragraph, click on that, and it's going to give me content for this tag. Now, while that's still highlighted, if you did click off, just click and drag over it. I'm just going to go ahead and put in underneath my snippets, you'll see the HTML snippets, and you'll see the ad lorem ipsum. I'm just gonna, you have to double click it here, so double click, and then boom, it'll pop in, and it will put in that lorem ipsum for us. So instead of doing that twice for the other section, again, I'm just gonna copy and paste it. So I'm just gonna grab from this H3 to this P, Control C, and inside of here, I'm just gonna hit Tab, and then Control V, and then boom. So now you can see we have this heading and this paragraph, and if I go to my live view, you can see, right? So I got these 2 sections, and then I have this bottom part here where I'm just gonna put some, I'm just gonna put a P inside of this. So I'm just gonna take this out, the content on my last row here, and just inside of it, I'm just gonna hit tab, and I'm just gonna hit paragraph. Okay. So now if I go to live, you can see I've got this general layout of a site that looks pretty okay. So I'm going to call this video done. I'm going to do one more, and I'm just going to show you one other thing, I think, maybe a couple other things that's just going to kind of help it. Because right now, when you look at the site, the way that it currently works is that it looks like this all the way from the top, right? So like all the way to max width. It's going to look like this. Still looks like this. You can see the card titles are getting a little bit tight. Here they're getting really tight, right? Like that's too tight. See how big that text is? And then here, it's really, really tight. And then until we get past the extra small, then it stacks. So what we're going to do is we're basically going to adjust that in the next one. All right. So save it, Control S, and then on the next one we're going to fix some of that.